Though some people did complain that they lost their money because of the investment that they had in the bank.
That is true, but
Yes.
when you invest in a bank as a shareholder, that's a business decision, and you could lose your money if you invested in a brewery or in a casino.
Okay, all right. Some people did say that they were really extremely unhappy with the CBN governor when the statement was made about the government or the CBN did not care about the investors; it cared more about those
Depositors.
Yes.
Well, the truth is that, you know, in saving a country from a banking crisis, you have to have a hierarchy of interests. And the number one interest of the central bank is the depositors, the man on the street. The second interest is the creditors. The third is the shareholder. As I explained to you, when you're a shareholder in a bank, it's a business risk that you're taking. A bank is a business like any other business. And it could be run well and make a lot of money. It could be run badly and lose money. So if you're an investor in a bank, you should be aware of that. And it's all the more reason why things like corporate governance and risk management become very important, because banks are very highly regulated businesses. And it is fractional reserve banking. That is to say, they take depositors' funds and then they use those funds to lend to people who need money. And so it is depositors' funds that form 90% of the money that is used for banking business comes from depositors' funds, not from shareholders. It's very important that you know this.
Now, let's go back to the issue we were discussing earlier regarding the interest rate.
Sure.
Because when you look at what the MPR...
Yes, I was explaining
MPR,
that we look at what we call the composite price index.
Yes.
We look at the prices of food, for example, the prices of transport and all those types of things. And it is those things that determine, and we know, for example, that there have been floods in this country in recent times. We know that those floods have created some scarcity in some food items, and therefore the prices of those food items have gone up. This was one of the main reasons why at the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting we did not reduce the MPR, because when we looked at the price index of some of these commodities, there was no basis to reduce the monetary policy rate. Now, what will happen at the next Monetary Policy Committee, I cannot predict. It's a committee of 12. And I'm just one member. So we don't meet beforehand. It is when the meeting takes place that we look at all the data before us, and then based on that we make a decision. You need to understand that economics is, at least, tries to be a rational science. It's sometimes public opinion may not fully understand why some decisions are taken, but we take decisions that are in the best interest of the economy of this country. And our goal, I want to tell you clearly, that our goal is to bring inflation down to the single digits. That's our goal, and to keep it there.
When?
Because
Because at this point we are at 12%,
yes.
And that 12%, the rippling effect it has on the banking industry is
Yes.
such that we now don't even have any bank. I'm not sure if there is as of yesterday,
Yes.
but recently we've not had any bank that's lending below 20% interest rate, and that is ridiculous.
Indeed, we believe so too. And we're hoping that a time will come when those rates will come down, when we'll be able to reduce the monetary policy rates. But our first priority is inflation. The reason you keep money at those rates to fight inflation is that money becomes expensive. And when you do that, hopefully, the rate of price increases will stabilize. Once you have that stability, then inflation is stable and goes down into a downward trend. Now, you need to, this is the most important job of the central bank, is to ensure that price stability. Much as we would like to have interest rates at 4-5%, but there are structural problems in this economy that make it difficult. You know, the economy is not a productive economy. This is what you need to understand about why inflation is high in Nigeria.
Yes.
It's not a productive economy at all. And we are advocating that it should become a productive economy. Manufacturing needs to come back in this country. Agriculture needs to come back in this country.
So the job of the central bank is only to advocate.
Listen, let me explain. Of course, we're an economic advisor to the government, but we are not. The central bank does not manage
the economy,
several aspects of the economy. We manage the monetary aspects of the economy. And so it's a responsive role as such. There are other factors, you know, like government spending, for example. If government spending is huge, it creates inflationary pressures. And the central bank now has to mop up that excessive liquidity in the system. And those are the things that create tight monetary situations. And so we don't manufacture, as I was saying, and this country, unless and until it becomes a manufacturing economy. Right now, everything is imported. And when everything is imported...
But how is it going to manufacture anything
without power?
When it cannot get long-term loans, for instance, and there's no power?
Exactly.
People are moving industries that are crawling in Nigeria, out of Nigeria.
Everything in this economy, I want to tell you that the key to unlocking this economy is the power sector reforms. When this country has enough electric power that firms can run and produce without running generators, you'll begin to see a lot of prices coming down. These are the structural dimensions of inflation in this country. It's not with the central bank. We're not in charge of manufacturing. Do you see what I'm saying? But you know right now that there is a power sector reform program that the president of Nigeria is very strongly committed to. And you can see that even in the last several months, we believe there have been some perceptible improvements in the power supply. And we're hoping that by the end of 2013, we'll begin to see really big shifts in improvements in power supply. You will see the ripple effect in the economy, including on bank lending, because those banks are running generators 24 hours and they're commercial enterprises. Okay. And we have other institutions such as BOI that the caller mentioned, the Bank of Industry. These are government-funded banks, so they lend at lower rates than commercial banks.
One of the scenarios that's being painted by some economists and financial analysts is we're running a rat race, and their description of this kind of rat race in our financial systems is one where we're saying, oh, because of inflation, we cannot reduce the interest rate. Yeah. And then if the interest rate does not reduce, we really cannot end up having a situation where people have enough fund to establish manufacturing company or even do trading and all that.
That's what I'm
saying. And if they don't do that, then the economy cannot be more widespread and it cannot be more robust. And if it is not more robust, then the little money that we have is chasing very few goods. So it's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
Where are we going to break that
cycle?
cycle?
Will come from the power sector reforms. That's what I'm telling you. I'm being very clear about where the breakthrough for this economy has to come from. The breakthrough must come from the real economy. And it is that real economy that creates facts on the ground.
Pending when the reform take or wins.
Without the power reforms, production of goods in this country will remain very expensive because its diesel and generators add up to 40% to the costs of anything in this country. And banks themselves are spending a lot of money on diesel and generators 24 hours. They will pass that cost on to you if you want to borrow. So I'm telling you that the problem in this economy is structural. You don't look for the solution with monetary policy. You look for the solution through industrial policy. You look for the solution through fiscal policy, that there should be less spending on, we're talking about recurrent expenditure, for example, too much recurrent expenditure in the budget, 60 something percent. Those kinds of things need to change because recurrent expenditures feed inflation. But if you're spending money, but you're spending it on a capital project, that's better quality spending. So there are so many factors that are all interlinked. Monetary policy must respond to these factors.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
We have an almighty caller on the line.
Sure.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello, good
Please
morning.
make your point.
Good morning. My name is Wale Oluwo. I have just 3 observations to make, and this is to the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Morning, Mr. Moghalu. My first comment is this. You talked about the distinction, technically, between taxpayers' money as well as the monies of the central bank. I would have thought that the central bank is a public institution, and every money that is at its disposal is actually money belonging to the Nigerian public. So I don't really agree with that technical distinction. Sure. The second issue is I want your opinion on the issue of interest rate now as it translates to banks making rent. I mean, the kind of profit they are making now, my personal view is that it is rent. Because they take money, put it in federal government instruments, and they make double-digit returns. There is not going to be any motivation whatsoever for them to want to, fund the real sector. And you have said that banks funding the real sector is one of your major priorities. So I think as we continue to keep the NPR that high, chances are that this bank will not play that role. Then the third matter, which is the last, because I don't want to take too much time, is the issue of the intervention system. I can see the CBN working with the federal government, intervening in a lot of sectors now, agri funds, aviation fund, and the rest of them. And I would have thought that when general interest rate is so high, and we are intervening at single digits, we create an arbitrage opportunities for these companies that we are giving this money. And they might round trip it and make money from arbitrage as opposed to investing it in their businesses. I know this works in advanced countries where rates are low as 1% and below. And when you intervene at almost close to that rate, chances are that those monies will get to those businesses and they will use it for what they are meant to use it for. But if you have interest rate of about 20-something% and we're intervening at single digits, I mean, clearly I see an arbitrage advantage. And a rational businessman will make money from arbitrage, and that will be detrimental to our economy.
Okay,
I would like your views on that.
So, how do you respond to that?
Very good comments, and I agree. So
it is our money.
Of course it is.
Okay.
There was never any question about that. I mean, I was
Okay.
simply trying to make a distinction that is important in order to educate people about the distinction between monetary and fiscal policy. Monetary policy is about inflation, it's about interest rates, it's about the exchange rate. Fiscal policy is about taxes and government budgeting.